and they didn't know what to do. It was on the evening news. Just kidding. I thought you'd enjoy that. But you know, with all that money, happiness does not come from money. All my life, knowing my dad, I mean, he's had mansions and butlers and maids and drives a Rolls Royce and has a Learjet, just all the toys. Has trouble sleeping at night. Well, he's actually sleeping a little better now because he had a stroke. But he has a lot of stress. My wife, Karen's a physical therapist, and last time we saw them, he asked if she could help relieve his tension. Had to drink himself to sleep all of my life. Or take sleeping pills. Solomon says, with the increase of money just comes a lot of stress. Well, happiness does not come from fame and fortune. I knew that growing up. Now, one thing I discovered, because I was raised an atheist, a person cannot be happy if they do not know where they've come from, what they're doing here, and where they're going. Young people are the number one group that commits suicide. Are you aware of that? Teenagers. Most of them, not all, but most of them are coming from public schools. And I am convinced there's a connection between telling young people that you're nothing more than a highly developed ape and there is no purpose to life, and they're figuring, what's the use? I started thinking about suicide when I was 7 years old. You know, kids get a little troubled when their parents divorce. That's an understatement. Bouncing around between my mother and father, mom was driven to be famous and dad was driven to make money, and pretty soon you start to feel like you get in the way. I'd try and talk to dad during breakfast, and he'd be reading the stock market reports, and every now and then he'd lower the paper and grunt. Only time I got his attention is when I got into trouble. So I was a troublemaker. I was always the class clown trying to get attention because I just wanted my parents to notice me. And I might also mention for our friends that a lot of young people out there that are getting in trouble, it's because they want their parents to notice them. Everybody wants love. Well, I didn't think anyone cared about me, and so I started thinking about suicide at 7 years old. Thought about it all the time. Always wondered what would be the best way to kill myself. I was afraid I'd mess up. Are you aware that more women attempt suicide than men, more girls than boys, but more men succeed? Men do things very permanent. Girls don't like to be messy. They'll take pills or something, and it doesn't always work. A man will jump in front of a truck or something and commit suicide. And so I wanted to make sure I died. I used to play a game in New York City where I'd go up on the top of one of these buildings. We lived in these skyscraper apartment buildings in New York, my brother and I with my mother, and I'd stand on the edge with my toes hanging over and look down at all the people, and I'd see how far out I could lean before I felt my center of gravity. Only reason I didn't jump is I was afraid, what if I don't die? What if I just get maimed for the rest of my life? Remember, on one occasion, my brother had gone to live with dad for his health. New York wasn't very good for cystic fibrosis. I was alone with mom. She was gone working all the time, and I just feel like no one cared. I thought, if I kill myself, maybe they'll notice me. Problem was, I wanted to be there to see them notice me, and there's no way to do that. So I went into my mother's bedroom and went into the bathroom and in her medicine cabinet. I knew she took sleeping pills every night. I filled my hands with some pills. She had some pills that said Valium, take one at bedtime. And I just about took them. I just wanted to go to sleep and never wake up. But I was 13 years old, and I wasn't sure that Valium was a sleeping pill. It didn't say sleeping pill anywhere on the bottle. I thought, what if these are pills for ladies and I get sick? I didn't want to get sick. I wanted to die. Well, somewhere along the way I decided, if I'm going to die, why do something boring like jumping off a building or taking pills? I'm going to die having fun. And so I got involved in crime quite a bit. And while I was living with my father, this is what I looked like at about 16. Kind of hard to believe. That's not a toupee. When I was living with Dad, he lived on these exclusive islands in Miami Beach called the Sunset Islands. And our friends, when I was growing up, were kids like, I used to date. You heard of Firestone Tires? I used to date Amy Firestone. You heard of Hoover vacuum cleaners? Sandy Hoover lived on the island where we lived, and he was a little different. We would all ride our bikes around the island. Sandy would ride his bike like it was a bus. He wanted to be a bus driver when he grew up. He'd pull up to the stop sign with his bicycle, and he'd go, everybody get to the back of the bus. We gave him a hard time. Do you know what Sandy's doing for a living now? He drives a limo. He's a bus driver, the heir to the Hoover vacuum cleaner dynasty. Anyway, so these were some of the kids we played with. We would get bored. You know,